Carolina just made it here from the airport. Literally just walked in. It's amazing.
But I made it.
So tell us, Carolina, how did you meet Daria and why did you decide to do this film?
So Daria reached out, I think, Facebook, Instagram, and I don't know, all other forms of social media a bunch of times, and I was like, okay, send me the script, I'll read it. And I fell in love with it immediately. And I do projects that I connect somewhat to the characters, or I don't know, I can appreciate someone's voice that haven't been told yet on the screen, and I felt like this movie had all of that. I hadn't seen that character portrayed in a way in the big screen, and I could relate to the character, the choices sometimes that we make, and to be able to survive. And I don't know, I just read the script and fell in love with it, and then we started talking. I think we talked over Skype for a year. And then she was like, well, I got the money, we're gonna make the movie. So I jumped on the flight and I went to Minsk for the first time.
What did you think about it what did you think about Minsk when you got there?
I was fascinated. I was completely in love with the architecture of the place. And one of the stories that we talked about it before, it was an interesting experience because I don't speak the language, and very few people spoke English. So, you know, we would go scouting, and it's a time that people talk and negotiate and discuss things, and I couldn't participate in any of the conversations, so it was kind of isolating and in many ways, but it was through those moments that were almost like a meditation for me, that I could just walk in the spaces and, I don't know, experience it without having to communicate what I was experiencing, just actually living it. That some of the, you know, the stuff that I most like about the movie in its visual language came from those moments. I started realizing, because of the economics and I guess a lot of the philosophy of being, you know, a post-Soviet country, the lights were never on, all of them. There'll always be like 20 lights on a location, you know, like hanging lights, and 2 would work, 1 would flicker, and the others were off, and I didn't know, so that became like a visual concept for the movie, for the lighting. So a lot of the things came from this, I don't know, this isolation in a way, and I just could experience the creative process in a different way.
Yeah, Daria said that she loves your vision for the film so much, and it's unexpected, which she loves. She said it definitely, nothing in Belarus looks like this, like any other films.
I'm not gonna take credit for that though. I think one of the things is that I fell in love. I mean, this is a love and hate letter to her own country in a way, but she loves that place, and that duality is in the character. You know, she wants to leave, but you know, she's still part of the place that she wants to leave. And Daria loves Minsk, and I feel like I fell in love with that place as well, because I was looking through her eyes, and Daria from the get-go wanted to make a movie that was not gray and necessarily depressing looking, like a lot of the movies on, you know, the Eastern Bloc are. She wanted something with colors, and that really kind of like a fish out of water in many ways, like the character was.
Can you talk a little bit about the minimalistic approach you guys took to the framing, and like how you guys made that decision?
Yeah, Daria wanted, because of the timing of the film, you know, she wanted to shoot on Academy 4x3, and that kind of, you know, freaked me out a little bit. We're not used to thinking about, you know, on such a square format. You know, we're thinking 16 by 9, 185, we're thinking widescreen, right? So it was kind of changing the ship in my mind, and I started watching a lot of older movies. So I was trying to figure out how to frame 2 people in a square format. How do people enter a screen? Because you never see them entering, they just like pop in there. So I started realizing that it's diagonal, it's from the back. So I don't know, I started to kind of relearn how to frame and how to move the camera based on this format. And And I think a lot of the decisions as well, how we framed her, it always came from a place of like how she felt in that environment. So the movie is very static at the beginning, and you know, there's a lot of a negative space that relates to how she feels in the universe around her. And once she meets Stepan, the camera starts moving, you know, because he's like bringing this new questions to her so established world in her mind and how she sees it. So all the decisions we made, framing and camera movement, everything came from how the character, it was our only rule, I think. It was like, it has to come from what the character is experiencing at that moment.
Is there any other interesting tidbits you can give us from the shooting, or?
There's a couple, but one of my favorites is when I go to row 100, every movie I do a piñata to celebrate. It brings the crew morale, and it's like fun, and I don't like champagne, so it's like, it's fun. So I decided, obviously, that I was gonna do there, and my art director did not speak a word of English. I don't speak a word of Russian, so it was an interesting experience to explain how to make a piñata they never heard or seen. And so halfway through that day, I see like 4 people constructed, and I wanted a red star. I thought it was gonna be funny. They did not find it funny, but they decided to make the star, but they made it yellow. And I see people like with wood and things. I'm like, how is this gonna work? And then I start seeing a lot of stress. People walking around stressed, what's going on? So I go to my producer, my Belarusian producer, who didn't speak a word of English either. So we communicated through vodka, shots of vodka,
wow,
and Google Translate, which, you know,
awesome,
creates a lot of confusion. And I think the vodka kind of helped. So in between that and someone half translating and us talking, I wanted to understand. I thought he was worried because I asked to put vodka, like bottles of vodka inside the piñata, and I thought he was worried that everybody was gonna get drunk on set. It turns out he was not worried about the piñata. Nobody cared about the piñata but me. But we had KGB investigating through the offices and going through the scripts, every name of actor and everything. So they were actually genuinely worried about an investigation, and that's the reality of Belarus still. And yeah, so they control everything that is made there. It's a kind of a miracle that this movie got made, and it's very brave of Daria to make it.
Really brave of her.
So yeah, so that's, so we ended up doing the piñata. It was made of wood, and the bottles were glass inside. Nobody could break it, and they put like a cushion underneath it, and eventually someone, I think with like a machete, opened it and got on the floor, and everybody put their hands, there was blood everywhere. And it was just like I was just like, but they loved it. 2 weeks after, it was someone's birthday, so they made another piñata. And I just love the idea that we're such universal beings, that it's just, you know, one day you might come back to Minsk and maybe like Mexican piñatas are being sold in the markets, I don't know.
Yeah, that's amazing, that's awesome. Do you want to take any questions from the audience?
Sure, absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions for Carolina?
I noticed that a theme of the simplified colors like red, blue, and yellow throughout the whole film. I was just wondering if there was any significance for that, or just part of the simplicity.
Yeah, we wanted to always be able to see red, green, and blue in every frame. And then she was always with the red and the blue, and then we brought in the yellow as the characters started changing. But those choices were kind of instinctive. I don't think we ever said, oh, the red means this or that. I mean, I guess in that country has relevance, obviously, but I think those choices we made were a little bit more instinctive.
How did you deal with like all of the restrictions in the country with filming a movie like this? It's beautiful. And I just wondered, like, how did you guys get around with it? If there were any restrictions with having like, the KGB like there, and all the pressure of that and getting it done?
There was, let's call it a fake script or a script that missed parts.
I've done that before.
So there was the script, and then there's another script. Because the movie actually started with her being interrogated. Now it doesn't, but it used to be like that, and that already was like, every time we go to places that looked like where they investigated, I couldn't talk, so they wouldn't realize that it was like a tourist, and there was like certain things that we had to take care of. And actually the final scene of the movie, when she sees the protests, this is referring to the actual protests in the 90s, and you're not allowed to talk about it, recreate it, just never happened. Actually the footage at the beginning that people gave it to Daria, these people are not allowed to tell their names because this footage doesn't exist. So when we were shooting that sequence, it was like, we would jump on the bus, and then we'd go around the park, it was like a big square park, come around the other side, people would come out of it, I'll start rolling camera through the window, and then they would do the little bit of like the take basically, and then halfway through the other side, they'll jump back on, and then we'll go again, and we'll do the take again. But I remember having coffee in the morning, and then someone said to me, enjoy it, it might be your last coffee. Because like, because if you're caught, that's it. I mean, people were actually, I can't remember who was it. I think it was one of our actors got arrested on the way to set one day. I mean, it's real, you know, like the younger guys that worked on my team, they're like in their early 20s, they, you know, their entire lives they have the same president, you know, that's just, it's crazy.
Wow. Right back there.
I was just curious, because it felt very, like, lived in. How much of the people were actors, and then how much were, like, locals? Because it felt very, like, you just got plugged into this world that's, like, very real. So I was wondering if everybody was actors, or if it was just, like, people that were in the area that let you guys shoot that. It felt like that.
I mean, there were, I would say mostly actors. I mean, the women in the factory were actually locals. There are non-actors locals, but I would say, I mean, the main cast was all actors.
What sort of challenges did you face in making Minsk look like 1996? Like, has it evolved as a city much since then, or was it easy just to make it put us in that space?
I mean, I feel like a lot of the cars were 90s, you know what I mean? The people walking the street, there's still a lot of the fashion, you know, it still feels like that way. I mean, honestly, for a period piece, was actually really easy to do over there. There's like a lot of, you know, and the architecture is the same, and it hasn't really like visually changed that much. So, I mean, obviously sometimes, you know, doing a period piece, you can't like turn 5 degrees one way or the other, but in general it was like pretty much there, you know, we just kind of had to dress a little bit.
Well, our time is up, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carolina, thank you so much.